When you're getting beyond your identity and you become a thought and possibility, something amazing happens over and over again. We've measured it on so many people. When you're living by the hormones of stress, fear, anxiety, worry, anger, aggression, hostility, judgment, envy, insecurity, jealousy, hopelessness, powerlessness, depression, guilt, shame, those are all created by the hormones of stress. Psychology calls those normal states of consciousness. Those are altered states of consciousness. And we live by those emotional states consistently. And the brain is being driven by those hormones. The brain is in high emergency, and it's in a very high brainwave pattern. And in that high brainwave pattern, that hyper-aroused state, you will not take your attention off the outer world. You know why? Because the innate mechanisms say that there's a predator around the corner. There's danger out there, and you don't want to take your attention off the outer environment. And why would you want to go in and create? You believe the outer world is more real than the inner world. And because your attention is going from your problems to your relationship, to your Facebook, to your Twitter, to your kids, to your car, to your face, to your weight, your attention is fragmented. If you were to look at how the brain begins to compartmentalize, the hormones of stress create very incoherent, very arrhythmic brainwave patterns. That incoherence over time begins to create a very incoherent signal down the central nervous system, which controls and coordinates all those systems, and the body moves out of balance. Now, the moment you begin to open your focus, and the moment you begin to become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, I've seen this over and over again, you become consciousness, a thought and possibility. The moment that happens, the identity is gone. And the brain says, thank God he's out of the way. Thank God she's out of the way. And all of a sudden, those different compartments that were no longer talking to each other, they start to reach out and connect with one another because it's not survival mode anymore. In other words, in survival, you got to take care of yourself. Compartments of the brain say, hey, this isn't a time to communicate. This is a time to be selfish, right? But when you begin to open your focus, the brain begins to start to get highly organized, very integrated and very coherent. And different compartments of the brain start talking to each other. We call that a whole brain state. The front of the brain starts talking to the back. The right side of the brain starts talking to the left. And you see this kind of psychic union going on. And if you look around at the person while they're doing that, this is what you see. You see the person not wanting the moment to end. They are so connected to something greater that they're trusting in their future in that moment. Now, I call that the natural state of being. When we get to this point where we feel connected, we're more energy and less matter. We're more wave and less particle. And we feel connected to a future. And when that occurs, the field around the body begins to get very large. How do I know? I measured it. So now, the person gets into that whole state. They are no longer seduced by the things in their external environment. In other words, the more whole you feel, the less pleasure you seek. The less whole you feel, the more pleasure you seek. So in the beginning stages when we were first doing the measurements, and I was watching this woman, I was watching her brain, and I was watching it get worse during the meditation. And I kept watching, kept getting worse. And finally the meditation ended and I called her into the room with me on the break and I said, what was going on in there? And she said, I was analyzing my life. The moment she said that, I understood. If we analyze our life within the emotion that's driving us, the answer will never be in that emotional state because the emotion is the record of the past. You're thinking in the box of the past. You take people and you get them beyond their emotions, they will look back and they'll have the answer. And I don't answer questions anymore in my workshops because I know that if a person's going through something, they're not going to hear anything I say that isn't equal to their emotional state. Change their emotional state, and not only do they have their own realization of self, but that more information makes it in. So in high beta, when you're aroused and you're stressed, it's not a time to learn. It's time to react. It's not a time for growth and creation and long-term building projects. And so then we have to lay down the very thing we used our whole life to get what we want for something greater to occur. Now, that is a skill because our students over time can change their brainwave states in a very short amount of time because they've practiced doing it. Once they are able to get beyond their analytical mind, what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. So in order for us to reprogram the subconscious, we've got to stop thinking. So if you're analyzing your life while you're meditating, might as well open your eyes, because your brainwave patterns you're not accessing the subconscious system. So we've seen over and over again that we can teach that, and people can get really good at it. It doesn't depend, it has no function of how old you are or what your background is. It's just a skill. Wholeness is the perfect place to create from. But you and I think that creation is an effort. It's actually not. There's a delicate balance between intention and surrender. If you over-intend, that's trying. And then if you over-surrender, you're lazy and you're lethargic and you're uninspired. But when you really get clear on what you want and you've created it, and then you surrender and you relax and you trust in the outcome, it's a very delicate thing that we can only talk around. It's hard to explain. So in a sense, yes, in a state of wholeness, all the things that you thought you wanted, you no longer want, because how could you want when you feel whole?
Right.
There's nothing to want. You're
right.
whole. So think about this. Most people, they say, oh, I want wealth, right? But really what they want is freedom, right? So we say to our students, well, if you want freedom from wealth, why don't you just feel free? I mean, that's what you're really after. So then you can condition the body into a state of freedom. And incidentally, when a person is whole and relaxed and satisfied with himself in the present moment, and at the same time connected to a vision in the future, that's when it always happens. We've seen it over and over again. So it's that delicate balance. It's not too much yin, it's not too much yang. It's the combination between the two. And then what people really want is inner joy. What they want is inner peace. And when they start, when you start in the work, you think about all these things in the veneer, like the sports car, the boat, or the relationship, or the whatever, the material things. But as you start realizing that you're making changes and you're feeling happier from within, you're less interested in that external stuff. I mean, me personally, I love the mystical moment. I love the moments that rock my world where I can't go back to business as usual. And there are people in our work, when I tell you they have had some very unusual experiences. Imagine understanding the science of creation. As I said, it takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of information. We don't go for the whole enchilada. We teach people methodically, step by step, on how to build. On every day, they build a little bit more, they build a little bit more, they get a little bit better. Imagine that you do that to such a degree that you understand how to do it all the time. Now, you're not going to sit down to do the work and be like, oh God, I got to go create now. You're going to be pretty inspired to create. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be something that you look forward to. And that's kind of the thing that I'm proud of when it comes to our community, because we're doers. And people do the work every day because they want the magic to be sustained. They want it to continue. And so it's no longer an obligation. It's no longer I need to do it to please God, to do the right thing, to be good, whatever people do it for. This is because they want to keep that kind of crazy world happening. And if you're in the belief system unconsciously that your body, local in space and time and three-dimensional reality, and you're trying to reach your goals and create your vision and do all this stuff, and you're a body, matter trying to change matter, then you have to drag your body through space every single day to get what you want, back and forth to work, whatever. And it's going to take you time to finally get your goals. That may take you a couple years. Well, that's because you have to think that I have to move my body to go get what I want. So then I got to compete. I got to force. I got to fight for it. I got to control it. I got to manipulate. I got to figure it out. Well, that's what you do with the limited resources when you're a body, local in space and time, trying to create something else local in space and time. Well, if you're matter
trying to create matter, then you got to do stuff to make it happen.
That's the way most of us were taught.
That's the way
brought up.
That's the way it's, you know, get the skills, get the all the different things. Well, now you got to lay down that very thing you used your whole life to get what you want and relearn another way to do it. So now you're back to matter, trying to change matter. And so now you're in that three-dimensional world and you can execute there and we can work it out, but it's going to take time. Well, when you start realizing where you place your attention is where you place your energy,